Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another long awaited episode of Finish Wednesday. I am John DeMuth, and over on the other side of the computer, the microphone is Katie, my wife, and we are both so happy about seeing you guys. And we're going to work through a few technical difficulties, but we're excited to be back live with you all on Wednesday night. And a quick little what's the word? So for those of y'all who have not been with us over the past few years, how long has it been, Katie? 6 years, 7 years? We hop on live every Wednesday night and we tie flies. We tie sometimes interesting flies that are new to everyone. Other times they're regular flies like we're going to tie tonight. But we go over different fly tying techniques, and we all learn from each other, and we just have a good night on Wednesday night. And every now and then, Misha drops in and she says hello as well. So we're we're really excited that you guys have joined us. But with that being said, speaking of technical difficulties, Katie, I have not seen one comment yet on the old thing. So can you either do this, or I'm gonna point at her and see if she can can you see if you can get the comments to show up on that while you're doing that? But we're really excited that you guys are here. Tonight, we're going to be tying a pheasant tail Frenchie with a little CDC. We're going to throw a few little bells and whistles in there, and then we might also tie more of a blowtorch version that we like to fish quite a bit. But it makes it kind of awkward when I can't see your comments, because normally I'm looking down and saying hello for. There it is. I see, like now I can see Nan saying hello, and Mary Catherine Rizio saying miss this, and Ken B from Australia. Now we're talking. So much nicer when I can see you guys talking to me. So if you haven't been with us before, ask questions. That's what this is all about. We're all learning, and Dr. Jason, what's up? Glad to be back. Jason, are you in Maryland? Are you the Maryland guy? So, and Ore, Katie, is the cat man. Remember the picture I showed you? The guy with the cat and with the backpack?
Oh, and look, Dr. Jason D. Stevenson is that a dog? I can't tell. I mean, the ears look like Misha's.
Could be. What's up, Mark? We've missed seeing you as well. And really, Katie and I have definitely missed seeing everyone. It's been too long. And hopefully we'll get back into the swing of things. So Ore is in and Ore, hopefully I don't think I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and I apologize. So MD Trout Mom, Mike Seymour, that is the guy who I thought was a doctor.
Black German Shepherd.
Okay.
Okay. Well, he'll have to compare sizes to see how much bigger his is than Misha.
Well, I don't want to encourage Misha to like run over here, because there's cords and cables and lights and everything, and I'm totally afraid that she's going to knock something over. Helena Fisher, I'm assuming that's Howie's wife.
We're actually trying to teach Misha how to use the buttons.
They'll switch the camera over.
Yeah,
and
the buttons that the dogs press, and recordable buttons. Has anybody had any experience with these? Because I saw some TikToks, and it was pretty amazing.
TikToks?
TikToks.
Oh.
I mean, back when they had TikToks before the TikToks went away, and now they're back.
Well, Chuck McGregor's in the house. That was my XO when I went to Iraq, honey. He used to bust my you-know-whats that are round for not getting a proper haircut.
He needs to come back.
He's come back and take care of me.
Somebody over here is definitely not squared away.
No.
Look at that mess behind him.
Well, unfortunately, I'm married. Not unfortunately.
There's no
That's
hospital
not right.
corners on that bed. That's for sure.
Well, I married an old army dog, and when I say old, I mean very young, beautiful army dog. So
we were always squared away. We had nice stuff too. So
that's
you guys
right.
kind of like, I don't know.
That's
I
right.
don't know what your stuff was.
So, guys, what we're going to talk tonight before we go too far in the weeds, we're going to do a pheasant tail Frenchie with CDC. So CDC Frenchie, basically. And like I said, this is one that I've tied from size 18 to size 14 to a size 20. The size 18s to 20s work really well as a dropper under a delicate dry fly. But the reason I wanted to come back, it's been a few months since we've been live, but the reason I want to tie this fly is it is a pretty simple fly to tie, but it has a handful of techniques that are they're somewhat basic, but you really need a master to be a good fly tire. So in the vise, we have a size 14. We're going to start with size 14 Umpqua XC 400 BL. Let's see, there you go. With a 3.5 millimeter bead, tungsten slotted bead. And for me, if you'll have heard me say this a bunch of times, 14, 16, 18, 3.5 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and 2.5 millimeter beads. So as you can see here, I've got a 3.5 little jar of 3.5 millimeter beads. And here in a minute, we'll tie size 18 with 2.5 millimeter slotted tungsten beads. What's up, Truman? It's fun seeing you here. All right, so to start the thread, we're going to start right behind the bead, make sure it's oriented correctly with the curved end, which is this part here is curved. Sorry, get it there. That part right there is curved. Can't quite see it. There we go. The curved part is slot there is going up. So we're going to start a thread and work our way back. And then we're going to put a tail on here. So the key thing when you're tying nymphs and really flies in general is to keep everything super thin. And so when we're tying, we want to make sure that we're not putting unnecessary materials as we're going back and forth. So that being said, and remember, guys, I said that the key thing is to ask questions. So the tail, you can use all sorts of different things. I want to use coq de lion. It's a rooster feather, very stiff, very durable. I'm going to use this as a tail. If you want to, you can use pheasant tail. You could use partridge. You can use just regular rooster if I wanted to. Use whatever you want to. It's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be exact because it's going to be very thin. Because I don't know how many of y'all have really studied insects, but their tails really aren't that thick. So I'm going to do about 5. Was that 5? Yep. I'm going to get 5 fibers. So we'll hold the fibers in this hand, and I'm going to grab the feather and pull it away. So you can see the butts where it ripped away is they're somewhat lined up. So I'm going to pinch them. And now as you can see, the tips are lined up. So reorient them. We'll measure them. That's probably a good thing to do first. And for me, when I look at measuring the tail on a nymph, I want the nymph tail to be a little bit shorter than the body itself. So you can see it right there. That's maybe a touch on the long side. Let's see. Yeah, maybe just a little bit. So I'll grab the butt ends and pull it just a little bit. Just like that. And now with kind of open spiral wraps, I want to keep those butt ends on top of the hook shank. I'm going to bring my thread back to the front. Make sense? Let's orient the bead the right way. And like I said, I want to make sure I go as few times back and forth. So without going back down, I'm going to go and tie my wire. And this is 0.2 millimeter Semperfly bright gold tying wire. And this is on your side of the hook shank. And this will make a lot of sense here in just a second. I hope it does anyway. What's up, Barry and Jeff Rowley? Long time no see. All right, so we're going to get our pheasant tail here. I'm going to grab, now this is really one thing when I watch other people tie, this is something I do a little bit different than some, but the same as others. So I'm just going to grab 3 fibers. 4 is okay. You can do it with 2, but 3 makes it to where if I break 1 off, I can continue it. So I've got 3 fibers here. I'm going to take it and just cut a little bit of the tip ends off. And now I'm going to bring it back to the hook. Katie, if you'll switch it over to the hook real quick. So I'm going to bring it back to the hook and tie this in. Let's see. Oh, lots of smiley faces. I like it. So see, I've got that tied in right there on the side. Now this is on my side of the hook shank. And we're doing touching wraps all the way back up. So I don't know if you can see, but that's still a pretty thin body there. Now here's one of my little, I don't want to say tricks, but here's one of the things that I do is I don't put a half hitch or anything in. I'll just bring my bobbin cradle over, hook my thread over, and now I'll start wrapping. And I'm going to wrap my pheasant tail in the opposite direction of my thread. So this is me counter wrapping it. So just like this, and once you get it started, you just kind of wrap it on. Not a big deal. Just like that. Truman, Jeffrey, and Mark. Mark, you were at the Indiana show the other week, I think. Flying more realistic or more unrealistic. So for me, more fibers makes it more unrealistic because it makes it really, really fat. And I'm trying to do like a little mayfly or something. Very good question. I'm trying to keep my body thin. Let me finish this one step real quick. So because the pheasant tail is going the opposite direction of my thread, I've already done one, but I'll do another one. I hold the fiber. I go 1 in front, 1 behind, loosely, 1 in front, tight. Behind, tight. So that's 3, back and forth. Now it's tied off. So now we've got this body that is completely smooth. It's thin. It's going to sink quick because I'm tying I hate to be like, I don't want to say dumb about it, but I'm tying a little bug, and they're teeny tiny. I'm not tying a big stonefly. I'm not tying a something like Jeff Rowley ties a big mouse or anything. It's teeny tiny. So like even though you can see that like the body, the only kind of taper I want to put in it is going to be to make sure that it's not bigger in the rear and fatter, or bigger in the rear, skinnier in the front. As long as it's smooth this way from back to front, or it can be a little bit bigger in the front, that's okay. I would have been totally fine if I would have put a few wraps there, but I really don't. I don't want to put a whole bunch of fibers on there just for the sake of putting fibers on there. So with my the wire, I'm going to do kind of the same thing. I'm going to come up. So I've got it just like that. I'm going to go 1. I just wrap that the same way, but the opposite direction. Okay. So I just captured my thread with my bobbin cradle, helicopter that off, and now I've got my. Katie, is that in focus? I might have hit the thing. Does that look like it's focused to you? That's in focus there. But that doesn't seem like it's focused. So I can, it's off by like a 0.5 millimeter. So I'll just leave it like that. I'd say my vise is probably like this when Katie focused it. Okay, so does that make sense? Or a thin is better because we are tying, we're mimicking an insect. This is not like really an attractor pattern or anything like that. And I've nicked my thread, so that makes it that much more exciting. Yeah. There you go. No, I'm holding it still now. Good. Thank you, honey. Everyone say thanks, Katie. All right. So now we'll use this JD olive, and I bet you'll never guess what JD stands for, but this is a very super cool color of olive.
Jimmy Dean.
Jimmy Dean, that's right. Thank you, Patrick. And Jeff said thanks, Katie.
Oh, you're welcome, Jeff.
So this is an olive that I don't want to say exactly I came up with, but I gave them some specifications, and I told Saberfly kind of what I was looking for, that was not just like a plain old olive. And this has some really nice UV properties. It's got some gold, coppers, all sorts of different colors in it. But the basis is olive. So just, we don't have enough olive stuff in our stash, but so this is JD olive. The scud dubbing. So do you see that little bit of dubbing here? This is what makes YouTube so much fun. See that little bit of dubbing? So I'm going to grab it and we'll pull out that much. Okay. Yeah, I might need a touch more than that, but this is what I'm going to go with to start with. So let's switch over to the side view. All right. I guess I'll pull it down so you have to look on the top of your screen. So you see how I've got the dubbing I just pulled out. It's in this hand. And I've got a little bit that I just pulled out from that pack, that stack right there. Bring it down. So can you see a little bit of dubbing in between my finger and the thread? So there's not much there, right? That's exactly what we want. Normally you wouldn't do it this far away from your hook. So you see that little bit? But I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So as far as dubbing, what's up, Michael and Bill? I don't know who you're giving a thumbs up to, but I'm gonna pretend like you're giving it to me. Thumbs right back up to you. All right, so now we have our dubbing noodle done. Now we do want a taper, right? So most insects are tapered. We don't want it just to be a stick. Well, and Ore was asking about using a bunch of fibers and everything. We want it to be thin, but there can be a little bit of a taper. But guess what? We've got this big old bead here, and we've got a skinny body here. So naturally that creates a taper. So all we want to do is kind of fill in the gaps. As far as just being like regular. That's right, Bill, is my dubbing mix that you all just need to go to your local fly shops and have them get some of the JD dubbing. It is a really good color, and the way it works, I'm going to show you in just a second, it works really well. So thin, big. We don't want the thorax, which is what we're getting ready to build, to be thicker than the body or thicker than the bead. And obviously don't want it thinner than the body itself, the abdomen. So Katie has a heater over there. She's acting like no one can hear it.
It's so hot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was trying to turn it down.
All right. New guy question. What is the purple green intended to mimic on the insect? So typically, I'm assuming that's what you mean, this on my thread right here. The purple is actually a UV synthetic material that's mixed in with the rest of the synthetic on this dubbing. But on the insect, you've got the abdomen, which is this part of it. You got the thorax, which is here, and I guess the bead would be more of the thorax as well. So if you're looking down like this, well, we'll leave it this way. So normally you'd have legs and stuff coming out of the side here, out of the thorax, and this would be the head of the fly right here, of the insect here, and then you have the tail back here, and then obviously the body or the thorax. And that's why a lot of times when you see insects, they'll have segmentations in the abdomen part of the body, which would be the back of the body, and that's kind of what this wire is mimicking. or the segmentations of the insect, but also the wire where it's wrapped in the opposite direction of the pheasant tail. It is creating a lot of durability. So I don't like using super glue and all. Like, I would prefer not to use any glues, but I do use them on whip finish at times. But sometimes people put super glue on the body to reinforce the pheasant tail, and that's totally fine. The only reason I don't like using super glue is because I don't tie 5,000 flies a week, and usually a bottle of super glue lasts me like 3, but maybe 2 months, and then it's completely dried up, and I got to buy a new one. That's just because I'm being super cheap. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. So everyone's talking about how cold it is. I think it -17 in South Central Pennsylvania. Patrick, goodness gracious,
that's cold.
That is cold. All right. So as you can see, we did a teeny little bit, and when I wrap this up, remember, I don't want it to go really bigger than the bead, and because it is getting close, I'm grabbing Velcro, just regular old, the hook end of the Velcro here. I'm gonna brush it forward towards the hook eye, towards the front of the fly. See it now. Now you can see my thorax now is even smaller, but I've got these really cool legs on there. See how neat that is? Like, I could whip finish it here and be done. And I'm gonna pull some of them out because that's a little bit much, but I could whip finish it there, and that would be pretty good looking. But we're not done yet. Yes, you are just south of me and coldest in the state. Fly tying not glowing. That is right. Only -10 upstate New York. 90.2. Oh, in Australia. Yeah, you can. But and it's morning for you. You're going to go to work, aren't you? And it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's something. -2, 38, and I'm surprised it is as warm as 38, Bill. Let's see what it is here. I wish I could go live on Instagram, but we won't do that. It is a balmy 22 degrees, which is the warmest it's been here in a few days. All right. Oh, lunchtime, Ken. I'm glad it's lunchtime. Okay, so I got a little ahead of myself. So now we're going to use some CDC. So I'm using this Trout Hunter CDC. It does matter what kind of CDC you use, but I'm not trying to use anything fancy here, just regular old CDC. And for those of you who don't know, CDC comes from basically the rear end of a duck, and they have a gland around that area that produces some oils that they dig out and they put on the rest of their body that makes them somewhat waterproof. And because the CDC feathers are Col de Canard feathers, are located in that area.
French is fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, honey, you know how good my Frenchie is. You know what I'm saying?
Fantastic.
Because the CDC feathers are located on that area of the duck, they are naturally waterproof. I won't say waterproof. We'll say water resistant, because they do eventually get slimed up. But they make great when dubbed, or when used sparsely, make great legs and stuff, because they capture air bubbles and stuff, and they work really well.
You have some questions.
Ooh, sorry. Well, Bill, let's go Nan first. And you know how cold that is. How AI. I don't know if you're talking to me, Nan, but I can only imagine.
That question. What can you substitute the CDC with? And also, does it have an odor?
Oh, it does not. I'm smelling it right now, and there's no odor. I mean, trust me, if you got
it doesn't have an odor at all.
If it had an odor, Katie wouldn't let me have it.
I will tell you, because
she'd be like, "Do
really,
this."
Really sensitive to stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So no odor. But what could you substitute CDC with? Hungarian partridge is probably my favorite. Switch it back over to me real quick. Hungarian partridge is probably my favorite feather to tie with. If I find one here, no, just trust me. Any soft tackle, but Hungarian partridge is probably my favorite one to use. So any hen would be fine to switch it out with. in the teens. Saw that dubbing at the Virginia show. It's awesome. Haven't found it yet. Well, Mike, we all need to go to our fly shop and ask for it because there's only 5,000 different colors of dubbing on the market. And fly shop owners don't know what to order until people like us go and say, "Hey, I'd like for you to get this one." With CDC tufts, with extra work, you could make them work as normal sparse long stem CDC. Like you're talking about the puffs like this right here, like the CDC puffs. Let's switch over to either the side or one of the other ones.
Let's go.
Okay, so you mean like the CDC puffs like that? Is that what we're talking about? You could make them work. You could, but let me show you how we'll use this one, and you'll see why just using a regular CDC feather is the best. So Katie's got it perfectly here on the side. I have this fancy dancy Swiss CDC clip. If you don't have one of these, you can use the Mark Pettigene clips. If you don't have one of those, you can use a chip clip. Don't get too what's the word? Don't get too worried about not having the right tool. This makes it the easiest, but it does have little markings here. Every 1/4 inch or so is a marking. So one of the things about being a good fly tyer is being able to keep your flies consistent. And every time I do this, I know exactly how much, depending on the type of feather I'm using. What I mean by that is some brands are denser than others. So depending on the type of feather I'm using, I know exactly how much to do. And I go right to that same mark, and then I will take my scissors and cut it off. So now I can use this feather for probably 2 to 3 more flies. But now I've got just enough CDC in the clip here. Okay. I'm going to take my thread, pull it down, take my bodkin. Now all I'm doing is flattening my thread. And then can you see that right there? I wish you could see it. I'm going to cut it in half. So I've got my thread split here. See that? There's the camera's up just a little bit. So I've got my thread split. Take the clip with the CDC in there, stick it in the middle. Now I'll bring it up to the top. Sorry, you can't see it. It's okay though. And you can see, let's switch over to the vise itself. So you can see how I just put that CDC right there. Now here is where I'll go ahead. Now you don't want to cut it straight, right? But I want to just chop it off. That's cut straight. That's not what you're supposed to do. I just broke the rules. So now I'll just go through and rough it up a little bit. Okay. So I'll switch back over to the side, and I'm going to take my bobbin, and spin it around, holding it just for a second. And now when I let go, all that CDC spins. Now I'll switch over to the fly itself. And when I grab my thread and slide my fingers forward, it makes it to a nice little CDC rope. And we'll roll that forward. And just for the heck of it, it's that same Velcro. Pull it out. Stroke this back. Okay. Now we've got our CDC in there. Remember, these are legs. This is adding movement. This is adding all sorts of stuff. So where I cut it off, see how the fibers are coming back to maybe there's some that are almost as long as the tail, but I don't want them way back here. I don't want all those fibers coming way, way, way back. I want them kind of short because they're just adding a little movement. And guess what? If they're really long, it's okay. Ain't no thing but a chicken wang. Now I'm going to use some of this wasabi fine flash dubbing, but ice dub would work fine. Whatever, just some sort of bright. This is yellow orange. I just really like this color for a hot spot. And when you're thinking about this hot spot, right? So we've got our nice taper. When you look at this right here, we've got a nice taper. The fly looks nice. The nymph is ready to go. We just want to put a little hot spot, and that's it. So see the fiber sitting here. I'm going to grab as little bit as I can, and that's why I got out, and that might be too much. So let's switch back over to the side. Let's see if we can see this. So I just pinched from the giant pinch from here. I pulled out a little bit, and let's see. There's 1, 2, 3 fibers here on my finger. Do it again. 2 or 3 fibers there. Go one more. So that is. I'll pull up my. That's maybe 1 inch. I'll slide up the front. All right, let's switch back to the fly cell. Okay, so now we're going to go. Should get about 2 or 3. So there's 1, 2. There we go. So now we've got our hot spot. Remember, that was just a handful of fibers, and it's just supposed to be a hot spot. You don't want to build up anything at all, but just some fancy or some color. And now we'll throw a few wraps here for Lance Egan style. Want a little bit of red showing in between the collar and the bead. I'll take some Sally Hansen's, like that. And unfortunately, Katie, was that you, Katie? No way.
I'm gonna go. I'll drink some water.
All right. Let's get that glued on. Now we've got a nice little buggy CDC pheasant tail nymph, little CDC Frenchie there, ready to rock and roll. Thanks, Al. Jason Brookie's here, and Ryan, so we go crazy for that fly. Well, this is a big one. So, and I would love to come up to the Andronics to fish this one, or any of them for that matter. But this is a big one. So now we're going to switch it over, continue to chat and ask questions, but now we're going to switch it over to a size 18 because the one that I just showed, there we go. I do fish quite a bit, but the size 18 is the one that I fish more often than not because I can throw this one behind just a parachute. So this is size 18 with a 2.5 millimeter slide tungsten bead. Thanks, Mark. It can be. So, and those of you all that are watching, make an attempt to tie this fly. I'll tell you one thing that would come in handy. Oh, there it is. I was going to say a hole in my bead. I thought I found just a bead with no hole in it.
Well, it's in the 90s, and it's lunchtime where Kenby is.
Right, 90.2 to be exact.
It's 90s and lunchtime where we are.
Honey, it's a good thing it's not. It's almost bedtime where we are. You know what I'm saying?
It's cold.
It is a bit chilly.
Don't like the cold weather.
Katie and I have been kind of complaining about our heat pump because it's kind of cold in our house most of the time, and we had the heating guy come over.
We chalked it up to the house being really old. Like, it's an old house, they're drafty.
Bill, thank you for calling me out on the frayed thread. I was kind of worried about that. I didn't know you were
going to see that.
I don't know where I caught it, but at the very beginning of the fly, like I looked down, I was like, oh shoot, that thing's not doing too well. So yeah, I kind of squeaked by on that one. But anyway, in the attic, we had finally a heat pump guy come over, and the ductwork was totally open. So all of our heat was going up in the attic, not in the house. So that's fixed now.
Yeah, that definitely made a difference.
Made a difference. It is still not like a sauna down here, but it's really close to bedtime here. Oh gosh, Mark, that's wild. Okay, so we're going to do this a little bit differently. Size 18, Umpqua XC 400 with a 2.5 millimeter bead. When I say we're going to do it a little differently, it's basically the same fly. We switched the thread color. So see, that's pretty small, right? It definitely gets a lot smaller than that, but that's small. And now I'm looking for my tailing material. Here we go. So we're going to go back to the CDC or the CDL, Coq de Leon. Makes you feel better when you call it something like that. So that's one extra fiber. Here we go. So hold the fibers, pull the feather away, butt ends lined up, measure it out, pinch wrap down, look at it, say, you know what, that's too long. Pull it shorter. It's fun watching it in the TV because I don't tie it all with the TV going, but you can see.
No, but you do talk to yourself in your time.
No, that is true. For sure. And Bill, you're right. It wasn't.
Me in here by himself, he'll be like, that looks too long.
I don't know what Bill, I don't know what exactly I did, but I remember looking down and being like, dang it. I hope this holds on. And then I was thinking, I told Ore when I met him at the Virginia Fly Fishing Show, and I said, it's a lot of fun, our little live show. And the neat thing about it is I'll cut my thread, I'll make mistakes and everything. They everyone just laughs at me and we just kind of move on, but we all have a good time. But it's all about the mistakes and how you recover from the mistakes. That makes it. And I'm thinking, good
That's
grief.
a life lesson.
The first fly that I tie and I'm already breaking my thread, he's going to be like, man, this guy's a goober.
That's a life lesson.
Oh, yes, it is. Got to learn how to do that. All right, so we've got our wire tied in just like before, and here is our pheasant tail. So I'm going to get 3 fibers again. Like I said, 4 is fine. Another thing, talking about using a bunch of fibers, you're actually, I mean, kind of wasting materials. If you ask Mike, you don't need like a big clump. What size hook would you? Well, for this pattern, for this pattern, I would use the 12-aught. This is the Simplify 12-aught classic wax thread. For this particular pattern, I would just stay with if I went to the size 20, I would still use the 12-aught, no problem. So let's grab this pheasant tail. Oh, not like that. Like this. Pull it to length just a little bit. Now we'll do a few touching wraps. And the smaller the fly is, the more important it is to count your thread wraps. I'm gonna get rid of my hackle plier or my hackle gauge there because it's making noise. Okay, so all right, so Katie can leave it at this camera angle, and I want you to see what I'm doing. See, I'm just using my rotary function on my vise, and I'm just bringing it around. And side by side wraps, just like that. Move my bobbin cradle out of the way. I switch hands. So I'm going over the pheasant tail, because remember, my thread and pheasant tail are going opposite directions. So if I go and just put a bunch of wraps, just like I'm tying off normal like wire or something, then I'm kind of going to loosen up the pheasant tail a little bit. So I go one loose one over the pheasant tail, then one tight one in front of the pheasant tail, then pull tight. And see how the pheasant tail didn't move? Do it again, over, tight. Again, over, tight. And now it's tied off. So no issue there. And this is something I learned from David McPhail. Fred Hurst is awfully quiet over here, isn't he?
I know. I was just responding that he's hibernating because it's so cold. He's like just frozen, like stiff.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to bring my wire back up. Now this is at 18, so I want my wire to be kind of close together. And don't be fooled by Katie's wonderful videography skills, because that is a small scene tie fly. I wish it was better. Maybe if I turn the light down a little bit.
AI stuff turned on to make it look like you're tying a really good fly.
That's what I need, all the help I can get. I'm sure this power down a touch. I'll turn this down a little bit. Oh yeah, how about that? All right, so now let's look at the fly. See if that looks better. What's the proper name? I don't know what the I mean, it's just a CDC pheasant tail or CDC Frenchie. It's a Frenchie with CDC on it. I'm sure someone has tied it and said that that's their pattern, but I wish I knew. And I would, if I knew, I would say this is who developed this pattern. Lance Egan's the one that I really learned how to do a lot of these techniques from, and he's a phenomenal fly tyer, and is basically his pattern with CDC on it. And it's probably my ignorance that I don't know who originally did it, so I apologize. So okay, I put that same JD Olive Silver Fly dubbing on here. I probably put a touch too much because this is a teeny tiny one. So all I'm going to do is I'm not trying to go back towards the tail. Okay, that's all I need really. The rest of it off. So I just need a little bump. So all I need is just a little bump because I can still brush it out. This is kind of what just keeps the CDC from falling backwards, or from like getting too much on the becoming one with the body, I guess. So see all that? You could just whip finish that right there and it would be fine. You don't have to do anything at all with that. And that's really why we don't want to use a whole lot of CDC, is because we've already got plenty of legs, plenty of movement. We're just trying to add a little extra fishiness to this. So this is a smaller fly. We need less material. So I'm going to measure just like I did before.
Do you want to put it in the second one?
Sure. So I've got the same clip I used before, but before I use a 1/2 inch, so maybe, or 2 ticks, which is a 1/2 inch, so a little over. So I'm gonna go a little under a 1/2 inch here.
And that's size 18?
This is size 18. That's tiny size. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. It is, we can definitely tie bigger stuff if need be, but where we are here in East Tennessee, usually every time we go to a show, people are looking, they're like, oh, that's teeny stuff. I'm like, man, this is 12s and 14s. This is the big stuff. I tie, typically I'm tying what I fish. And it's hard for me to sit up here and really teach and show people like what we're using, what we're doing when we don't fish it. So that's why we don't tie size, I don't know, 10 Frenchies, because we don't ever fish those. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to cut. I like cutting it before I wrap it. And you can make it, rough it up a little bit. Now you can leave right there, Katie. I'm going to twist the bobbin. That's a 2.5 millimeter bead. Oh, you're South Carolina? Okay. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. 2.5 millimeter on the 18. Well, you'll have to come over and go fishing with us, or we're going to be in the, I don't know where in South Carolina you are, but we're going to be in the Smokies this weekend on the Tennessee side. You'll have to give 2.5. Okay. It's a 2.5 millimeter bead. We'll be on the Tennessee side. We'll have to get together and do a little fishing. All right, let's switch over to the fly itself. Okay, so on the size 14, remember right here, I was using a different color thread. I was using the fluorescent red. Maybe I can get it show up. There you go. Fluorescent red, fluorescent bright red. And right now I'm using fluorescent red. Trust me, this one's just fluorescent red. So I can put a couple wraps here. And now I'm going to whip finish. as opposed to trying to put dubbing on, I'm doing my hotspot with the thread. Now it's not gonna be quite as good as the dubbing and the contrasting color thread, but on the other hand, it's a smaller fly and there's not really room for all that. So you see I've got just enough of a hot spot there. I wish that sense like is in focus.
Yeah, I think they're moving something around.
Well, you can see I've got my little hot spot there, and I've got the fly there. You can see that the UV, you can see the little purplish, the all that's coming from that JD olive dubbing, the little sparkle and stuff. So pretty cool. Doing it when you do small, just using the thread as your hotspot. Now, if you wanted to, you could go a natural color body for the thread, and then we got to the bead, you could switch colors and just do the fluorescent color thread for the very end. But I just assume do them all like that. So I will, if I get 3 people, I'll tie something like this. Or no, shoot, that's what I just tied. I'll go ahead and start tying it anyway. I'm assuming that there's a couple of you that would like to see me tie one more thing a little bit differently. And Katie, can you move this camera up just a little bit while I get put together?
Which one?
This one right here. Tie a dart. I'm going to tie something similar to a dart, Al. I was wondering if you were just going to use thread for the hotspot small ones. I found, yeah. So that's exactly what I did. Just use thread.
What about the 5/64 bead?
So the 5/64 bead, off the top of my head, I don't know. I used to keep track of those like 5 or 6 years ago. The different, but now I choose millimeters. So I don't know. If I had Alexa, and hopefully if he was listening, like without their headphones on or something, I'll say, Alexa, how many millimeters is 5/64 of an inch? And hopefully someone just got the answer. I still not. I'm trying to get up here where the tying desk, so you can see the hook. See what I mean?
Oh, you mean lift it up? I
Yeah.
went like come in.
Yep. Like manly, like perfect. Thank you, honey. All right, so we're going to tie a little teeny tiny bit different, but not a whole lot. All right, so we're back to the size 14 here with a 3.5 millimeter bead. So like I said earlier, size 14, 3.5 millimeter, 16, 3 millimeter, 18, 2.5 millimeter, and those can be adjusted about half of a millimeter each. So if you want to, you can put a 2 millimeter on size 18, and you could put a 3 millimeter on 18, depending on the hook. But all right, so now we're going to use Floor Bright. So you can use, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it. Oh, you can use other stuff. Someone's going to tell me what to use here in a second. Let me undo some of these. Flora Bright works really well. But you definitely don't have to use it.
Glow Bright.
Glow Bright. There you go. Thank you, Patrick. That was what I was trying to think of. Glow Bright. I think you use like 3 or 4 fibers of Glow Bright. Floor Bright, you can get by with just one. Doubled up 1, but 2.
Oh, Al has the answer to your math question. You're right.
2 millimeter. Okay. So you could definitely get by. Dang it. You definitely get by with a 2 millimeter on the size 18, but I was using on this Umpqua XC400, I was using a 2.5 millimeter.
Yes, Jeff, your nose definitely knows how sharp those can be.
Yeah, let's just All right, so now we've got one strand of the Floor Bright doubled over, and I'm holding it on top of the hook shank. And you go slower sometimes, and other times they go faster because I'm really going too slow. So you see how that's right on top of the hook shank. bring it forward, open spiral wraps. I'm going to leave this long for now. Now I want to tie in some flash. And what do I have? I've got some flash here. Use whatever tickles your fancy. So let's, if I can find, the tippet, we'll do this correctly. So I'm tying the flash on my side, because this will be a really good fly to show this. Put it in my bobbin cradle. I've got 3X, I've got 30 pound, I've got 7X. I think that's, yeah, perfect. All right, so I've got some 7X tippet here. So this is just like when you go to the fly shop and they've got a little bin of like old junky stuff that no one wants. Usually no one wants 7X unless you really want it, and then you'll spend a fortune on it. So if you get 7X nylon, usually like $1 a spool on the cheap stuff. Grab it for tying. Grab it for fishing. I fish with it, but a lot of people, when they lose one fish, they're like, I'm done. Now I'm going to tie this in on your side. Pull it to length. Does anyone go into the Atlanta show that's here? Anyone at all? All right, while you're answering that question about the Atlanta show, I want to explain something. This will be really easy with the glow bright tail. So if you notice, I tie materials on both sides of the hook shank. So the glow bright, or the fluorobright, excuse me, is my tail. I've got my flash tied in on this side, and I've got my tippet, or like this wire, my ribbing tied in on the far side. Trying to go to Denver. Well, we will be in Denver as well. So if I tie my flash in this tied on my side, the same direction as my thread, my first wrap is going to hit my tail. So just like this. Now it doesn't have to. I can go way up this way, but it'll hit my tail. And if I've got a nice little delicate tail, it's going to make it disheveled. Same thing with my tippet that's tied on the opposite direction. If I were to tie it counter wrapped and bring it back this way, my first wrap would hit my tail. So that's why I tie them in on opposite sides, because my first wrap is going to go underneath. But in both materials here, they're going opposite directions. Let's go like this. Both materials will go underneath and underneath. So my first wrap is going underneath and then up and over my tail. So I'm not going to right away hit my tail. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something that it took me a little bit to figure out. But it helped me out once I kind of got that down. Helped me out a bit. All right, so now we're going to, Katie, if you'll switch over to the side view real quick. So I'm gonna pull out my JD Olive right there. Scud dubbing. That's what we're gonna do most of this fly with. And so I'm gonna push it out. And if y'all don't do this, y'all start doing it. Take your dubbing bag, cut just a little hole here. I learned this from Clark Pierce. And you can grab, and they'll pull the dubbing out kind of aligned. So if I want to get more out, I just go like this, pull out and got more out. So see that? I transfer the hands. So I got that clump here. And that is a hop, skip, and jump for Fiore. And I pull this out. So now I've got a little bit here. That's probably a little too much. So remember, thin is what we're looking for. So we'll pull this down. See how you can barely see the dubbing that's in between the thread and my finger? Everyone say thanks, Katie, for switching the camera. Pull this out. It is so much easier to add a little bit more dubbing than it is to take dubbing away. So I want to kind of do this. I won't say slow motion, but I'm just going to go really slow. grab your dubbing, pull it out of your clump. I've got just a little bit there. We'll add this on top here. So take it, press. So I've got the thread holding the dubbing in between my finger and the thread. Just one direction. I'm just twisting it up, and that's pretty much good. Okay. So now let's switch over to the hook real quick, honey. So I'm going to bring the thread back. So the dubbing starts right at my tail. Well, I tell you what, it's a little toasty back here. So remember, thin. Remember how thin that the pheasant tail was? I just used 3 fibers. Kind of the same way with this. Like we don't want it super thick. See that nice shine? It really doesn't even need the ribbing and stuff. I think it looks pretty darn good just the way it is. So any questions on the duping or anything at all? All right. So now I'm going to once again put my thread in the bottom cradle. I'm going to start off with my tinsel, wrap it counter wrapped, just like that. Move my bottom cradle all the way, and I'm gonna wrap this the same way. Easy wrap, tight wrap. Easy wrap, tight. Easy wrap, tight. I can wrap back on top of itself. See how tight that is? How small that like that? It's got a nice little bit of a taper on it, but that looks perfect. Now just for the durability aspects, I'll just do this manually without the other. So this is just going the same direction. Okay. So now we're just going to put another dubbing noodle, work this thing up kind of quick. I'm just going to stack it behind this bead. That. See how it's looking? That looks, I could probably use a little bit more, not much, but just a touch. That looks good. So it looks kind of messy, which is fine. Just real quick, rough it up. And that looks pretty nice. And now we're going to do basically the same thing we did before. I'm going to cut this off, put my scissors right up against the hook shank, cut that off. Do it. I want to do this now before I get the CDC in there. Grab my same Velcro, work out that tag. So we got a
little red dartish.
Nice little tag. And now we're going to put the same thing with the CDC. I just had to find my feather. There it is. So we've already tied 2 flies out of this feather, and we could probably get 1 here and then 2 or 3 more on that side. So pinch that. And like I said, we don't need a whole lot of CDC because of that good dubbing. Right now, you're going to switch over to the side. So that now you can see kind of what I'm doing. I'm taking my bodkin, I just put on my thread here and bring it back. And that's just going to uncord my thread to flatten it out. Then once it's nice and flat, which it's not, spin it around a little bit. So I'm having a hard time here. So if you start doing like I'm doing right now and having a hard time getting it to uncord, if you'll just take your bodkin and do this, have it hang loose, and when you pull it back towards you, the way the bobbin spins is the way it needs a twist to uncord it. So now we're talking. Now I can split it in two. Stick the CDC in there. Right now it's it's in there perfectly, but I want to cut it shorter, so I cut it straight and then just kind of rough it up like this. Because it's not so much that you don't want to cut it with your scissors, it's that you don't want it all just one clean cut. And now we're talking about say what again? I don't remember what I. Believe it or not, I've said a few things.
How you can uncord it.
Okay, I'll show you here in just a second. So we're going to straight back. Now, Jeff Rowley, who I think is still on here, he was fishing in your neck of the woods a couple weeks ago. So there we go. And we'll throw this on here. So what I was saying on spinning is, Katie, if you'll switch it, we switch it back to the side. So bobbin, bodkin, please, I'll try to keep the names correct. So if you take your bodkin and put on your thread like this, and then let go of your bobbin like this, when I pull it back to myself, that's going to push the twist to my bobbin, and the way it's twisting like this is the way it needs to go to uncord to flatten out my thread. So every now and then I've got a hard time getting my thread to flatten out nicely. That's because I've been doing this, and I've been going like this, trying to figure, I'm like going different things, get my thread to lay correctly and do everything right. And it just doesn't, it's not going the right way. So sometimes I just need to stop and be like, let me just do this, hold it up, bring it back, and then I bring it back like this, see which way my bobbin's turning. That's the way it needs to go in order for my thread to uncord. So now I can take it here and go like that. And now it's a lot flatter than it was. Like the tip to flatten your thread. Yep. Does that make sense, Bill? Joke you should have called. Well, that's a long story, Al. We'll have to tell you later about that. We had a lot of good we've got some stories to tell that probably shouldn't be told in public. All right, so now we'll throw this on there. And I thought it was interesting with the Virginia show. I was showing some of this, and I said, let's do it like this, okay? We'll pull my dubbing out. I'm gonna put it here and we'll count. There's three. It was ice dubbing. There's 3 fibers of ice dubbing there. I twisted up. I said, see how much that is? Let's do it again. We'll go right beside it. That's another 2 or 3, and they were long. That's probably 4 or 5. But the point is, like, when you're doing these for a hot spot or for just a regular Frenchie, man, you should be able to count the fibers. And if you can't, if you have too many to count, let's switch over to the hook. If you got too many to count, see how thin that is? If you can't count them, you won't get it that thin. So let's see if I can get 3 wraps out of this. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. And that's plenty for a hot spot collar. Yes, Jeff, it was a hooking experience that was very slick. I don't know, that's probably not funny at all, except for me and you. Jeff, what would be another way to say our we slid right in? I don't know. All right. And Bill, I did it this time without frame my thread, unfortunately. So you see me cutting the CDC. If it was super long, you know what? It'd probably work fine. But what you want to make sure you don't do is over hackle it. Don't put too much, because these little marks here, this side, these little marks are a 1/4 inch. Can you see them? Yeah, those are 1/4 inch a piece. And I had on this fly about 2 marks, so roughly 1/2 inch total of CDC in this clip. I might have had a little under, but not much. You don't need to take on this pattern a whole feather and wrap it and then cut it down. That'll be way too much. Barbless. That's right. Exactly, Patrick. That's a good way to put it. Just enough to. This is not, that orange is not meant to be a thorax. That's what that hashtag JD Olive did right here. That's more. This is just a hot spot. And that's why on the small ones, we just use thread for it. So it doesn't need, when I look at the proportions of a fly, and this is a good way to look at it. I think most of us would agree the most important thing about fly fishing is not the fly, it's how you present the fly. And then I would say the next most important thing, if you can present a fly correctly, would be the size of the fly. And then I would think it would be the proportions of the fly. And then, like, last thing would be the colors of the fly. So that's just fly fishing in general. So when we look at proportions of the fly, when we start building up, like when we're putting materials in, and all of a sudden we've got the big old fat bead, we've got thorax that's fatter than the bead, and then we've got all this stuff, and the next thing you know, the body is only like from here to here is the body, or the abdomen. You know, we want that pretty abdomen right there with the segmentations on there. We want the thorax to be pronounced a bit, but we don't want it to be the whole thing, right? But starting off, keeping everything so thin, and this hot spot is just that. Like, this is a tag. This is not meant to be super, super, super big. And I'm pretty sure if Devin was watching us right now on the tag of this with his blowtorch, because this would be very, very similar to his blowtorch. If I was going to say whose pattern is this, I would say it's Devin Olson's pattern. But you know, the tags on his blowtorches are not meant to be super fat. So keeping everything thin and having some nice subtle, in some cases not subtle hot spots, but hot spots that are not like taking up the whole thing are important. So quickly, if there's any other questions, let us know. But I have outstayed my welcome in your all's homes this evening, so I will bow out for the night. But guys, it has been 3 months or 4 months since we have been live with you guys, and it's been so much fun sitting here listening to you guys and seeing you all and chatting with you all. Bill, as always, Bill is from Oregon, I think, or the very north Idaho, because when we went to Idaho, we wanted to get together with you, but we're hoping we'll get out west and Bill see you again, or see you sometime. Al, Patrick, Jimmy, Nan, Jason, do you post a recipe? We don't. If you'll send me a note, I'm happy to send you the recipe. Oregon, see, I was right, Oregon. But send me a note and I'll send you the recipe. If we start getting enough notes, then we'll start posting it. Thank you guys very, very, very much. New flashback. Oh, Glenn, new flashback. You got to keep reminding me. And if you're on here and you're not showing me your, if your name's not the same as your Instagram name, be like Glenn and remind me, because I might not remember. But guys, thank you so much for this evening. Hopefully we'll be back next Wednesday night tying up something, requests or anything. Let us know. We'll do our best to whip it up. We're going to be down the Great Smoky Mountains National Park this weekend hanging out. So if you're anywhere in the neighborhood, feel free to give us a shout and say hello. Helena Fisher, great fly as always. See you guys next week. Mike, Mark, Glenn, Jason, Ore is a newcomer to our show. Awesome seeing you guys. I will let Katie sign us off. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Have a great week, guys. See you later.